This pastor's preaching one Sunday, and he's getting into his message, which was on abstinence. And he said, he says, if I had all the wine in the world, I'd take it down and throw it in the river. And some people said, amen. And then he said, and if I had all the beer in the world, I'd take it down and I'd dump it in the river. And they clapped a little bit, and they said, amen. And he said, if I had all the whiskey in the world, I would take it and I would dump it in the river. And they, amen, and they clapped. And then the pastor sat down and the song leader got up and he said, for a closing hymn, we will turn to hymn 365, We Will Meet at the River. So we are in a series, and this is part 3, on the life of David, and we're taking little snapshots and segments out of the story of David in the Bible, and we're looking at some things. This is a man after God's own heart, the psalmist king, but we've seen that he made a lot of mistakes, and this morning we're going to look at another horrible mistake that David almost makes, but this time he is saved by a woman. So guys, don't you admit women are awesome? That's your chance to say, yeah, your wife's sitting next to you. Come on, yeah, right? Okay, I do want to say this, though. When a woman says, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, under no circumstance, all right, don't go there. It's a trap, all right? It's a trap. As a matter of fact, women can be tough. Man, I'll tell you what. The CIA was looking for some assassins, and they had 3 candidates. They had 2 guys and a woman. And the first candidate, they said, we need to know that you can obey our orders regardless of the circumstances. So in the next room in a chair is your wife. Here's a gun. Go in and kill her. And the guy just says, he starts crying. He goes, I can't kill my wife. And they said, thank you very much. You're not our man. They go to the second guy. They said, we need to know that you can obey us. In the next room, your wife is sitting in a chair. Here's a gun. Go in and kill her. He goes into the room. And then he comes out and he's bawling his eyes out and he says, I can't kill my wife. And they said, you're not our candidate. Thank you very much. The woman comes in. They said the same thing. They said, we need to know that you can obey. Your husband's sitting in a chair in the next room. Here's a gun. Go in and kill him. She goes in, shuts the door. They hear 6 shots. Bang, 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 bang. And then they hear crashing and thrashing and screaming and yelling, and then it goes silent. She comes out and she says, that gun was loaded with blanks. I had to kill him with the chair. Yeah, you don't mess around with women. So, this message this morning kind of revolves around the golden rule, right? We know the golden rule, do unto others. Right, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Unfortunately, when somebody hurts you or when you feel betrayed or when you feel backstabbed, it's do unto others as they have done unto you. And we want to get even. And there's a problem, though, with getting even. Like when somebody does something to us and we start seething a little bit and we say, you know what, I'm going to get even. The problem with that is that getting even makes you even with somebody you don't even like, right? I mean, if somebody disses you and you felt put down and you say, I'm going to get even, well, now you're even with somebody that you don't even like. And so there's a better way of actually getting ahead rather than getting even. And that's what we're going to take a look at this morning. And so our story, again, begins about 1,000 years BC, or roughly 3,000 years ago from the date that we're in. And we looked at the fact that David steps on the scenes of history as a 15-year-old who goes out and takes on Goliath, and in one shot of his sling becomes the most famous person on the planet. And King Saul brings David into his family, and David becomes the king's son-in-law, and David keeps gaining in popularity because God is blessing him. Everywhere he goes, he has great success. On the other hand, Saul is getting more and more jealous and more threatened. And so he starts sending David out on suicide missions just to get rid of him, just to have him killed. And finally, Saul just says, I'm just going to kill him. And David gets wind of it, and he runs out into the wilderness, and he finds himself with this small ragtag group of soldiers, about 600 discontents that have come around David. And they're out in the wilderness just kind of surviving and fleeing for their lives from King Saul. And this is where we pick up the story in 1 Samuel 25, and it says this. Now there was a man in Mahon whose business was in Carmel. And the man was very rich, and he had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats, and it came about while he was shearing his sheep in Carmel. And so this guy is really well. When the Bible says he had 3,000 sheep and 1,000, whatever it was, goats, this is basically like saying the guy's a billionaire in today's society. This guy's very, very wealthy. He's got a lot of livestock, and he's very, very wealthy. And it says in verse 3, now the man's name was Nabal, and his wife's name was Abigail, and the woman was intelligent and beautiful, and in appearance. And the man was harsh and evil in his dealings, and he was a Calebite. And so, actually, his name is actually pronounced Nabal, but everybody always just calls him Nabal. So we're going to go with Nabal this morning rather than correct pronunciation, if that's okay. And this guy's name literally means foolishness. His name means a fool. And so I don't know if mom and dad saw something in him or whatever, but they named him that name. And so he's kind of like an idiot, but his wife she's smart, she's intelligent, she's attractive, she's got everything going. And so he definitely married outside of his class. You got to understand, these are all fixed arrangements back then, right? So somebody probably said, hey, our daughter's really beautiful, she's smart, let's get her married off to this really rich guy, and then, we'll be part of the family and things will go well. So this is what was happening back in this culture with these arranged marriages. It goes on into verse 4 and 5. David heard in the wilderness that Nabal was shearing his sheep. So David sent 10 young men, and David said to the young men, go to Carmel and visit Nabal and greet him in my name. And so when he's shearing sheep, this is basically payday. This would be like a farmer's harvest. They're shearing sheep, and so all the year long that they've allowed the wool to grow, they're now going to shear it, they're going to sell it, and this is going to be a huge income of cash. This is payday times 10. And so it's a very celebratory time for anyone that was a shepherd to be able to do this. And everyone's usually in a good mood because, this is it. I mean, this is when the money's coming in. Everyone's getting paid off. Everyone's getting their bonuses. And it's going to be a great time. And it goes on and it says, thus you shall say to him, this is David sending out some guys in his name. He says, thus you shall say to Nabal, have long life, peace be to you, peace be to your house, and peace be to all that you have. So David says, listen, go to this guy and bless him. Bless him in my name. And give him peace. Peace to you, peace to everything. We live in a world that's really tense. We live in a world that's harsh. And a lot of times people need peace. Jesus is the Prince of Peace, and we should be blessing people with peace because life can be tough. And sometimes we just need that rest of peace that comes from the presence of Jesus. It goes on into verse 7, and it says, now I have heard that you have shearers. Now your shepherds have been with us, and we have not insulted them, nor have they missed anything all the days that they were in Carmel. And so basically, David's telling his guys to go to Nabal and say, listen, this is the day of profit for you. This is the day you're going to sell all this wool. You're going to have a huge income. You're celebrating. It's a great day. But you need to understand that my men and I were a hedge of protection for you. Like not all the shepherds of Israel had a little mini army of 600 men hanging out and camping around their flocks, but that's what you had. And while they were in the wilderness, we basically protected you so that nobody messed with you. Now, the Philistines were right there, and there were other marauding bands that were right there, as well as just thieves that were looking to steal and get ahead by somebody else's loss. And it was not uncommon for shepherds to lose livestock in the course of a grazing season, in the course of the wool growing season. And David is saying, listen, the whole time you were out there, you didn't lose anything because people aren't going to want to tangle with a little mini army of 600 soldiers guarding their flocks. Goes on into verse 8. Ask your young men, and they will tell you. Therefore, let my young men find favor in your eyes, for we have come on a festive day. Please give us whatever you find at hand, your servant and your son David. And so he's like, listen, we've been good to you. We want you to be good to us. We've been kind to you. We want you to be kind to us. We just want you to understand that, and don't even take our word for it, but go and talk to your servants. Go and talk to your shepherds that were in the field. They'll relay the whole story. If you don't believe me, go talk to the young men. Go talk to your shepherds, because we could have stolen from you. We didn't. And no one could have stopped us because we're an army with swords. No one's going to mess with us. But we were a wall of protection for you. It goes on into verse 9. When David's young men came, they spoke to Nabal according to all these words in David's name. Now, this is kind of cool because this is representative of what we do in Christ's name, right? Jesus said, go out in my name, baptize, in my name, heal the sick, in my name, cast out devils. So representatives, and this is basically what he's saying here. You're going in my name. You're a representative of me. And so verse 10, but Nabal answered David's servants and said, who is David and who is the son of Jesse? There's many servants today who are each breaking away from their masters. And so he knows who David is. Everybody knows who David is, right? A few years ago, he was the giant killer. He was the hero deliverer of Israel. He was the one that put his confidence and faith and trust in God, and God came through big time. Everybody knows who David is. And so he's like, who's David? Because by now everybody had heard that David had left Saul's household. David had left the center of Israel and was off in the wilderness. And he's basically saying, listen, David's just a rogue. David's just a fortune seeker. Everybody's breaking away from their masters to go and strike it out on their own and do some great exploit. And, David's just one of these people. Why should I even acknowledge him? He goes on in verse 11. Shall I then take my bread and my water and my meat that I have slaughtered for my shearers and give it to men whose origins I don't know? And so David's young men retracted their way and went back, and they came and told him all according to these words. So basically Nabal says, listen, guys, I don't even know who you are. I'm not going to take anything I have and just throw it to the wind and give it to you. Regardless of what happened and what you did, I don't care. Leave me alone. And so David's men turn and they go back. And you can only imagine that when they got back to David, they might have embellished a couple of things, just because stories grow, right? Over time, stories grow. You went fishing, you caught a minnow, turns out to be an 18-inch brook trout, whatever. Stories grow. And so this is what's happening. So verse 13, it says, David said to his men, each one of you gird on his sword. And now it's starting to get serious. So each man girded on his sword, and David also girded on his sword. And about 400 men went up behind David, while 200 men stayed with the baggage. This is serious stuff. There is an emotional intelligence, this thing called self-control. As a matter of fact, in Galatians chapter 5, it's one of the fruit of the Spirit, self-control. But self-control is like a muscle. And sometimes you can only use so much of it, or circumstances can build up to where you just start losing control. Today, we live in a time and an age where everyone gets offended about everything. Everyone has a little hissy fit and a little temper tantrum about everything that doesn't go quite their way. And people are emotionally retarded today to be able to deal with life. Because sometimes you got to just be able to roll with the punches. You got to be able to understand that when Jesus said it rains on the just and the unjust, he means that, right? And so we need to understand that. And so what's happening here is that David has been running for his life. He's been living off the land for a couple of years. These 600 men from all over Israel who were discontented and in debt and downcast just gravitated towards his leadership. And so he's got this ragtag army that's hanging out with him because they respect him and they love him. And secretly, he's been protecting Israel with this little army. He's been fighting off the Philistines, and he's getting no credit for it. He's doing it because he loves the God of Israel. But he's not getting any recognition. He's not getting any credit. He's not getting any pats on the back. He's not getting any attaboys. And his ability of self-control is just starting to really weaken. Saul is after him. He's no longer with his wife. He's alone. He's off in the desert. And he's getting at that breaking point. And he gets this news from his men that Nabal has basically said, hey, you know what, David? The heck with you. I don't care what you did for me. I'm not giving you any of our stuff. I don't care. I don't know who you are really, and I don't care. And so now all of a sudden, his anger is going to get transferred to this last insult, even though there's all kinds of sources, right? There's Saul trying to kill him. There's living in the wilderness, hand to mouth. This is the straw that breaks the camel's back, and all his anger is now focused on this, and he is losing self-control. And it ain't going to be pretty. John Maxwell has always said this, and it's become something that we live by. You hear me say it 100 times: hurting people hurt people. Hurting people hurt people. I've seen it in coaching experiences, working with couples, where they're in a lot of pain because something happened, and they're fighting at each other, and they're destroying their marriage, and they don't know why. Hurting people hurt people. It's like an animal, like a dog that gets caught in an animal trap. You might be its faithful master, but it's in pain, and when you go to it, it's going to snip and bite at you because it's in pain. And that's what happens to people. An experience happens, we get in pain, and hurting people hurt people. In this scenario, however, it changes just a little bit with the fact that hunted people hunt people. David's being hunted, and he's like, you know what? I think I'm going to do a little hunting of my own. And so he's getting really upset, and he's pushed to the limit, and he goes to do something about it. And you can only imagine that there's a lot of self-talk going on. Everett mentioned that this morning. Are you talking to yourself, or are you listening to yourself? David, right at this point, is listening to himself. And that self-talk is going on and on and on. It goes on into verse 14. But one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, saying, behold, David sent messengers from the wilderness and greeted our master, and he scorned them. He's like, listen, Abigail, you need to know something. We respect you. We love you. You're a very sharp operator. You're an incredible businesswoman. This is what happened. You've got wisdom, and this is what happened. And David's men were very polite. You need to understand something. At this time, these men could have had their way with the maidens. They could have done anything they wanted to, right? And they weren't. They were a wall of protection. And so in verse 15, yet these men were good to us, and we were not insulted, nor did we miss anything as long as we went about with them while we were in the fields. They were a wall to us both by night and by day, all the time we were with them tending the sheep. And so the servants are like telling Abigail the way it is. This is why David said when he sent his men to Nabal, he said, ask your own servants. But see, he was too busy for that. I'm not going to waste time even asking my shepherds or shearers what went on. But now Abigail's getting the full story. These guys are telling it like it is. They're saying, listen, David, he didn't rip us off. He was always there. This was a good deal, and now it's gone south. Verse 17, now therefore, know and consider what you should do, for evil is plotted against our master and against all his household, and he is such a worthless man that no one can speak to him. Aren't you glad? You know, the Bible says that a true word is good, it's healthy. You know, you don't want attaboy, you don't want just yes men, you want people to say it like it is. And so these are servants that go to their master's wife, and basically they're saying, Abigail, we love you, but you got to know by now your husband's like a giant butthead, right? I mean, he's going to get us all killed right now. He's going to get us all killed, and you need to look at what you got to do because he's going to open a can of whoop'em on us. David is not going to take lightly to this. Verse 18, then Abigail hurried and took 200 loaves of bread, 2 jugs of wine, 5 sheep already prepared, 5 measures of roasted grain, 100 clusters of raisins, 200 cakes of figs, and loaded them on donkeys. Now listen, this is a lot of stuff. She loads this up. But I was looking at this, and I'm like, okay, so she takes, 5 sheep. There's 600 men. I'm like, if I'm one of the soldiers, I'm like, what are the other 599 going to live off 4 sheep? Because one of them sheep is mine. You know what I'm saying? It's like, this is a lot of stuff, but it's not that much of stuff. But people didn't eat then like they do today, right? We overeat. I overeat. I'll get you all off the hook, okay? Verse 19. She said to her young men, go on before me. Behold, I am coming after you. And she did not tell Nabal. Smart lady. So she gets all of this stuff I mean, we're talking like a market basket, Hannaford's portion of stuff loaded on donkeys. And she says, you go, I'm going to follow you. But right now, I got to go Revlon. I got to go Max Factor. You know what I mean? I'm going to make it look good. I'm going to present my junk and it's going to be good. You know, she's like, I'm going to make sure that this is a good deal. She's an attractive lady and she's a smart cookie. And so she comes out and she says, you guys go ahead. Verse 20, it says, it came about as she was riding on her donkey and coming down a hidden part of the mountain that, behold, David and his men were coming down towards her, and so she met them. And so the geography of this area is that there was like a ravine, like a valley. And so David and his 400 soldiers are coming down one side. She's coming down like a hidden thing, and boom, all of a sudden they're face to face. This is like just like one of those, oh, wow, bam, here we are. And what is going to happen? Now, David has got this self-talk going on, right? He's coming down here, and every step he takes closer to Nabal, he's getting madder and madder and madder. And so it says in verse 21, now David had said, surely in vain I have guarded all that this man, he's not even calling him Nabal anymore, this man. He says, surely in vain I've guarded all this man that he has in the wilderness, so that nothing was missed of all that he had. And so he has returned evil for good. May God do so to the enemies of David and more also, if by morning I leave as much as one male of any who belongs to him. He's not playing around. This is a huge insult. And David is just, he's got no more self-control. It's done. He is ripping, steaming mad. And he's like, I'm going to go to Nabal, and I'm going to take him out, and then my men are going to take out every single male that belongs to him. And then my men can do whatever they want with the women, and we're taking all his junk, and we're taking all his wool, and we're taking all his cash, because this is payday for us now. He is absolutely ripping mad. You know, sometimes people say, if you had a time machine, and could go back in time, when would you want to go back? And you know, Christians, they're so good. I want to go back to when Jesus walked the earth and hear him preach on the seas of Galilee. And I'm like, I want to go back in the days of David when you can kill your enemy and praise God while you're doing it. You know what I'm saying? That sounds like it's more fun to me. So you can only imagine what this is looking like, okay? I mean, visualize. Here's 400 soldiers. They got their swords on. David's probably like, you know, let's get them on three. Rah, rah, rah. They're all jeeped up and they're going to go. Verse 23. When Abigail saw David, she hurried and dismounted from her donkey and fell on her face before David and bowed herself to the ground. Now listen, Abigail is a successful businesswoman. She probably doesn't bow to too many people. Maidens would probably bow. Servants would bow. But not somebody who's probably dressed really, really, really nice is going to lay on the ground and bow before somebody actually even like David, who at this point is just a rogue, right? He's just kind of like he's out there doing his own thing. And she bows, and when she bows, it kind of catches David off guard. This is a big thing. She bows to the ground, and it catches him off guard. Now, ladies, get this. She begins to treat him as if he's already the man she hopes he's going to become. She begins to treat him like the man she's hoping he's going to become. You know, they say behind every successful man is a woman, and that's so true. And I remember when I was dating Darlene, and she had said something like, you know, you're a diamond in the rough. And I'm like, I don't know if I like that. I get the diamond part. The rough part, I don't know. I mean, I kind of like rough, you know. But you know, she was 100% on, and boy, what you know, a great effect that she had on me. And guys, you know, ladies do this. They have a way about that. And we know, ladies, we know it. But we still give in all the time. It's amazing how that always works, right? And so she speaks to David's potential. She speaks to David's future. She's going to start saying, David, you know, just stop. The other day, I went to Concord because I was going to go. There was a pastor's gathering in Concord, and I was going to go to Concord for this pastor's gathering. I personally, don't take offense if you're from Concord, I hate that city. I hate the city of Concord. And so I go into a parking garage, because there is no place to park in Concord. And I park, and I go up to this little machine that was created by some engineers who literally came from the pit of hell. Right? And so it says, enter your parking space 2077, because I was up on the second tier, and I came down, and I'm at this little kiosk, and it says, enter the space, and then it says, pay. And so there's a place for tokens or quarters, which I wish I would have had 100 quarters. I would have paid that way. Credit card. So I put my credit card in. And then it says, select how much time you want to pay. Use the yellow arrow to select how much time you want to pay. Well, there's 4 yellow arrows pointing down with 4 yellow boxes with no figures on them. So I'm like, okay, I press one button, nothing happens. Press the next one, next one, next one, next one, next one, next one. Like nothing's happening on this. Take the card out, put it back in. I did it like 4 times until the machine starts saying that spot's taken. And I'm like, yeah, it's taken by me, but I can't pay. So I'm like, all right. I get back in my car. I drive to another section, find another spot, go. I go to a different machine. Sign of mental retardation is doing the same thing over, expecting a different result, right? I go to another machine, and I put my credit card in, and I go through the whole, and there's like some little instructions on the machine. I read them, I reread them, and then I read them again, because I'm like, what am I missing? And the whole same thing, 4 yellow arrows, and I'm like pressing buttons, and nothing. So finally, I'm like, hey, you know what? I just hate Concord enough that I'm leaving. I got in my car. I mean, I'm in a suit. I bothered getting in a suit. I drove all the way to Concord, and I'm like, I called Darlene. I'm coming home. She's like, Ken, you're bigger than that. And 99% of the time I am, but not that day. I came home anyway. I was done. I was like, man, if I had a chain, I would have hooked my car on that machine, and, So you understand. When I say self-control is kind of like, it's a muscle. And when it gets tired, it's like there's just no more to give there. And I was just like, I just don't have anything else to give to that little machine. So then it goes on. Then it goes on in verse 24, and it says this. She fell at his feet, and she said, on me alone, my Lord, be the blame. And please let your maidservant speak to you and listen to the words of your maidservant. Now listen, she's not a maidservant to anyone. She's not anybody's servant. She's a successful, wealthy businesswoman, and but she stops and she says, David, this is all my fault. And all of a sudden, he's thinking, I'm going to kill Nabal. And now all of a sudden, she's taking the blame. She's saying, this is my fault. And again, it catches him off guard. Verse 25, please do not let my Lord pay attention to this worthless man Nabal, for as his name is, so is he. Nabal is his name, and folly is with him. But I, your maidservant, did not see the young men of my Lord, whom you sent. And so now she's basically, she's like, David, it's all my fault. Let's have a talk. Let's you and I talk. It's almost like she's using like Jedi mind trick on David, right? David, this is my fault, David. Let's you and I talk, and like he's falling for it, and it's just like, whatever. And so verse 26, it says, now therefore, my Lord, as the Lord lives, and as your soul lives, since the Lord has restrained you from shedding blood. Listen, nothing's been restrained at this point. They're just having a conversation. But she's automatically tapping in to his relationship with God. Because nothing's going to come out of just discourse. This is going to be centered spiritually in faith. And she says, listen, David, since the Lord has, past tense, restrained you from shedding blood and from avenging yourself by your own hand, now let your enemies and those who seek evil against my Lord be as Nabal. In other words, he's an idiot. And everybody who doesn't understand you, they're idiots. She's kind of praising him here. She's saying, listen, the Lord has kept you from this. And she gives him credit ahead of time for doing what she wants him to do. It's amazing how this is working. Verse 27. Now let this gift which your maidservant has brought to my Lord be given to the young men who have accompanied him. In other words, she's like, look I'm going to meet your needs. You guys are hungry. I get that. You're living hand to mouth. I get that. But I'm going to feed your whole army this day. And then she says, please forgive. Please forgive. Own your junk and just, I'm sorry. I remember years ago, little things get to me. So years ago, I was at my house, and a lot of times campers from Pawtuckaway come into our parking lot and just throw all their trash in our dumpster. And so one day, there's a car over there, and they're hurling like 5 large trash bags into our dumpster. And I'm like, So I go walking out, and the car comes, and the car stops. But I'm on the passenger side, and there's a woman there, and then there's the drivers on the other side. And they're like, what's the matter? And I said, well, hey, you just threw all your trash in our dumpster. And she's like, what's that to you? And I'm like, well, she goes, it's free. I says, no, it's not free. I said, that's our dumpster, and the church pays for that dumpster. And you're just throwing your junk in our dumpster. And I don't appreciate it. And then she starts getting mad and starts yelling at me. Like, this isn't none of your business. You should be... So I just walked to the front of the car. This is a miracle, but this works all the time. I just walk to the front of the car, and I point at their license plate like I'm memorizing it. Folks, I couldn't memorize 2 letters if my life depended on it, right? But I'm acting like I got that license plate up here, and I'm never going to lose it. I guarantee if they'd driven away, I forgot it as soon as I looked at it. I go back to the window, and now there's a different tune, and the guy starts speaking, and he's like, sir, I'm so sorry. And I look at her and I go, that's all I wanted. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Just say you're sorry, right? And so, did you get anything out of the story? I don't know why. I just had to unload myself with that. So she's like, please forgive the transgression of your maidservant. The Lord will certainly make for my Lord an enduring house, because the Lord is fighting, my Lord is fighting the battles of the Lord, and evil will not be found in you all the days of your life. And so she's like, listen, I get it. You're out there. You're driving off the Philistines. You're a wall of protection to Israel. You're not getting any credit, but I get it. You're doing what you're doing because of your faith in God, and you're going to be awesome one of these days. And then she goes on and she says, should anyone rise up to pursue you? Okay, well, everybody knows that Saul is pursuing him. Should anybody rise up to pursue you, to seek your life, then the life of my Lord shall be bound in the bundle of the living with the Lord your God. This is so pregnant with meaning, because to be bound in the bundle was a reference used to their wallets or pocketbooks. They would have a piece of cloth, they would wrap their money in it, and then tie it with a string. It was their wallet. And so what she's saying is, David, you are so awesome, you are in God's wallet. He's got you protected. You are in God's wallet. And then look what she says. But the lives of your enemies will sling out as from the hollow of a sling. Man, she knows what she's doing. Because all of a sudden, David is transported 7 years before, when he's in that valley standing with Goliath. And he's got nothing but a sling. And she's using vivid imagination and imagery to capture his attention, to get him to refocus. And he's like, wow, because when you throw one of those slings, I'm telling you what, that's like a bullet that you researched it, Craig, and what'd you say? That those things could be accurate up to 100 and sometimes 200 yards. 400 yards. These slings had a velocity, and she's saying your enemies, God's going to throw them away from you the speed of a stone out of a sling. Incredible. So she knows Saul's after him, and she's using this wallet thing. You're in God's wallet. All these things that are happening, but your enemies, Goliath, your enemies are going to come down with the sling. And now she's going to ask him a question to get him to do what she wants. Women, where did you ever come up with that masterful little piece of psychology? It took me, how long were we, 33 years we've been married, Darlene? Yeah, I think it took me like 29 years before I realized, I know what she's doing. We'd be sitting there watching TV or reading in 2 different chairs, and she'd just go, is it cold? Oh, I'll turn up the heat. Right? You ask questions to get things done rather than saying, hey, go turn up the heat. Is it eyelids? Is it cold? I'll start a fire right here on the floor for you, sweetheart. I mean, I'll make sure that everything's good here. But she's getting him to think. She's getting David to think, and this is what she's getting him to think. This is part of your story. Your life becomes a narrative. Every aspect of your life, Everett talked about things in the past life. We all have stories. We all have a narrative. And she's saying this that you're going through right now, the experience you're experiencing today, tomorrow is going to be part of your story. And what kind of story do you want to be able to tell about your life? How do you want that story to play out? And so in verse 30, and when the Lord does for my Lord, according to all the good that he has spoken concerning you, and appoints you ruler over Israel. She's got some wisdom. She's got some insight. She's basically saying, listen, I get it. You are probably going to be king one day. You're probably going to be the king over Israel. Verse 31. This will not cause grief or a troubled heart to my Lord, both by having shed innocent blood without cause, and by my Lord having to avenge himself. When the Lord deals well with my Lord, then remember your maidservant. She's like, dude, someday you're going to be king of Israel. And you're going to look back on the scenes of your life, and they're all going to be stories that you're going to tell your friends, and you're going to tell your grandchildren. How do you want to be able to tell this story? Do you want to say, yeah, I went in there and I slaughtered them all, and I got even, and who? Or do you want to be bigger than that? Do you want to be able to say, I had mercy. I decided to have mercy. Have a good story. And basically what she's telling him is, I believe you're going to change your mind. And all of a sudden, David starts seeing truth without the lens of offense. You know, the Bible says, Jesus said in Matthew, take no offense. We take offenses. And when we take them, we put on the lenses of offense, and it becomes that much easier to get offended the next time, and the next time, and the next time, to where all of a sudden we live constantly with our dander up and ready to be offended. And we get so easily offended. And man, we need to just be able to chill, because offenses are going to come all the time. And we need to be able to have the emotional intelligence to be able to deal with those like adults. Verse 32. Then David said to Abigail, blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel, who sent you this day to meet me, and blessed be your discernment, and blessed be you. You have kept me this day from bloodshed and from avenging myself by my own hand. He should have known better. He should have known better, but he's 22, and sometimes young guys can, they have a lot of testosterone, and they're ready to go. But he should have known better. This would have been blood that would have been on his reputation. Oh, here's the king of Israel. Oh, yeah, remember the time he slaughtered that whole guy's household and all the servants, And so all of a sudden, he gets brought back. Sometimes we need to step outside of a situation in order to really look at it in perspective, and this is exactly what happens. Verse 34. Nevertheless, as the Lord, the God of Israel lives, who has restrained me this day from harming you, unless you had come quickly to meet me, surely there would not have been left to Nabal until morning light as much as one male. In other words, it was a done deal. In my mind, in the minds of my men, we were going to go there and we were going to clean house. David received of her hand what she had brought him and said to her, go to your house in peace. See, I have listened to you and I have granted your request. David was getting ready to make a huge mistake, and this woman in her wisdom comes and speaks to him and makes everything okay. And David takes the goods that she gave, he goes back to their army, and everything's good. And then it says, you gotta love this. Then Abigail came to Nabal, and behold, he was holding a feast at his house like the feast of a king, and Nabal's heart was merry within him, for he was very drunk. So she didn't tell him anything until morning light. Now, when you're very drunk, morning light is not a good time, right? And that's when she waits. His head is probably like an anvil, and she comes up to him. And in the morning, when the wine had gone out of Nabal, his wife told him these things, and his heart died within him, that he became like a stone. And about 10 days later, the Lord struck Nabal that he died. So get this. He knows what he did. He knows he dissed David. He knows that David watched over his flocks. He just was being a jerk because that's who he is. He's a jerk. And she waits until he's got this massive hangover and she says, oh, sweetheart, I know your head hurts really right now, but it's better than being dead because that's what you'd be right now if I hadn't stopped David from coming here and killing you. And he has a heart attack. And then 10 days later, he dies from that. Now, this is where the Bible just gets fun, right? I don't even think he's cold yet. And David sends a proposal to Abigail to become, he's like, hey man, she's smoking hot. She's got everything going for her. She's got wisdom, and I would be even a bigger fool if I didn't bring her to become my wife. And then she's got it going too, because the very next verse, and Abigail quickly arose and rode her donkey with her 5 maidens that attended her and followed David's messengers and became his wife. And they all lived happily ever after. Well, not really. She only became one of his wives. So here's the thing. There are 3 characters, and there are 3 responses. Nabal, evil for good. He's a poophead. Yes, I actually put that on a slide, right? He does evil for good. He's just simply a poophead because in this world, unfortunately, there are jerks, and he's just a jerk, right? Then you have David, evil for evil, predictable. Anybody can do that. You do me, I'm going to do you, right? I mean, that's just the way it goes. However, you have Abigail, good for evil, and that's absolutely remarkable. That's absolutely outstanding. Her judgment, her response, everything about her is absolutely remarkable because remember, this is a time when to repay evil for evil is okay. This is a time, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, right? This is all okay, even sanctioned in the Word of God. And so this works out really, really, really good. And then about 1,000 years later, Peter watches Jesus get arrested, go through a mock trial, get scourged, and then get crucified. And when he writes one of his letters, his first letter, he says this, not returning evil for evil or insult for insult, but giving a blessing instead, for you were called for this very purpose, that you might inherit a blessing. He's saying, listen, as Christ followers today, 1,000 years after David did that, Peter is saying, then and even to us 2,000 years later, you are called for this very purpose, to bless, to do what our king did. Not David, the king of Israel, but Jesus, the king of heaven and earth. And when David starts getting older and he has more perspective, he writes these words in the Psalms that Peter goes on and quotes when he's writing this letter. And he says this, for the one who desires life, to love and see good days, must keep his tongue from evil, his lips from speaking deceit. He must turn away from evil and do good. He must seek peace and pursue it. For the eyes of the Lord are towards the righteous, and his ears attend to their prayers. But the face of the Lord is against those that do evil. In other words, give place for the wrath of God. I want you to be instruments of just forgiveness. I want you to have that self-control when you go through things of life. I want you to imitate faith. And Peter got that from David, who got that from Abigail, because he was going to make a huge, huge mistake. And Abigail, who got it from God, who later comes in flesh and says these very words. You've heard it said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy, but I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. See, Christianity is not easy. Don't let anyone ever sell you that idea that Christianity is easy, because that's not easy. It's easy to love those that love you, right? Those are relationships. But those who don't love you, to still love. Never are we reflecting the character of our God more than when we're doing that very thing. Not working miracles, not praying for the sick, not giving money to missions, but when we learn to love our enemies and refusing to respond in kind. And so here's the question. Do I really want to be even with somebody I don't even like? Do I want to just get even because somebody did something to me and I'm going to get even? Wouldn't it be better to get ahead? And also, shouldn't we ask ourselves this question? What story do you want to tell down the road? Oh, that person did that to me, but I slashed all their tires. Wow. How noble of you. David is like a mile away from shedding innocent blood, from taking his own vengeance, and that would have haunted him all the days of his life. Maybe right then and there he would have purged all that steam and got rid of all that anger and just, oh, that felt good. But I guarantee you, the next morning and the next week and the next month and the next year, he would have been like, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done that. Every event in your life is going to become a story. What story do you want to be able to tell? And here's the last question. What would it look like for us to return good for evil? Maybe it's a classmate that's got it out for you. Maybe it's a coworker. Maybe it's a parent. Maybe it's a boss. What would it look like for you to return good for evil? To do acts of kindness in the face of somebody that's treating you badly. This is where our lives intersect with the greatest story ever told, and that's a story that God loved the world so much he gave. God loved the world that rejected him, denied him, didn't want anything to do with him. God loved him so much that he gave his only begotten son, and when his son came into the world, they denied him, they rejected him, they preferred the darkness over the light, even to the point where they crucified him. And yet God, still in his love, makes a way for us to be forgiven, for us to be saved, and for us to come into his family. Wow. The incredible love of God, returning good instead of evil. It's remarkable to be able to do that. So, are you rehearsing something this morning, or are you reshaping something this morning? Because if you rehearse it, it doesn't go away. But if you start to reshape it, you can change things. Don't settle for getting even. That's the easy way out. Be like your king. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for Jesus, who is the shining example for us. That we are to not curse, but to bless. We are not to get even. We are to instead love. And Lord, it doesn't mean that you ever call us to just be a punching bag or to be taken advantage of, but by and large, in the discourse of life, we're to be people of love. We're to be people of mercy. We're to be people of grace and forgiveness. And I pray for that one that's here this morning that right now is going through that situation of either being misunderstood or misrepresented or talked about, or barbs and darts are coming their way from a classmate or a coworker or a boss or a parent. And they feel like this is so unfair and they're losing their muscle of self-control. Lord, I pray that you would strengthen them. And I pray that this message would speak to their very spirit. And I pray that they be able to rise above and that you would lift them above that battle. And that they would be able to stand in a position of grace and forgiveness, knowing, God, that you work all things out well. We can entrust you because you and you alone are trustworthy. So I pray that you'd bless this people, bless this congregation, lift up your face to them, lift up your countenance upon them, and give them peace. In Jesus' name. And everyone said, amen.